on this episode of the Sorority Chat podcast.
Living in a chapter house and living out of a chapter house are two different experiences. And being able to, again, get to yes, how do we help empower you to make that a great experience and feel that you can use the property in the way that you want to, and also protect your organization and protect the members living there from creating any unwanted liability. So I think just becoming aware and thinking through potential issues in a different way really kind of informs those decisions for both members and advisors and the national organization.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Sorority Chat. I'm Liz Alexander, a designer and sorority alum who's obsessed with all things Greek life. My mission? To bring you real conversations, smart insights, and fun stories that help make sorority living even better. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat. Hey, sorority chatters! Hope you're having a good week. Joining us today as the guest is Kit Moorman, Director of Risk Management Education at MJ Sorority. She is a Kappa Alpha Theta from DePaul University. Kit has built a career that's taken her through fundraising, nonprofit leadership, event planning, and even law school before landing in her current role supporting sorority communities across the country. At MJ, she works with organizations to identify emerging risks, to improve their housing experiences, and create environments where collegiate women can thrive. From unofficial houses and porch pickup trends to fire prevention technology and the impact of changing weather patterns on chapter facilities, Kit has a fascinating perspective on what's happening behind the scenes in sorority housing today. So we're going to talk about the risks that chapters may not see coming, how thoughtful spaces can support student well-being, and why risk management is about a whole lot more than rules. Hey, Kit.
Hey, Liz. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to talk with you. I always enjoy our conversations, and you're a wealth of knowledge, and I think today's conversation is going to be really valuable for folks.
I agree.
So I shared a little bit in your intro that your career path wasn't exactly a straight line. So talk to us about how you go from fundraising and nonprofit leadership to becoming a leading voice in sorority risk education.
That is a great question, and I am still trying to figure it out myself. I think the real common thread in my career has been a love of supporting young women in their leadership development and becoming who they want to be, mostly because I was extremely lucky to have women who supported me. And the sorority system, I think, is so well set up for that and to foster community across generations with one another. It goes so far beyond friendship, so far beyond career, and is really, as we say at Theta, lifelong. So I think what brought me to MJ was really a chance to marry all of those passions, working with young women, being able to use my law degree and thinking through all of the behind the scenes stuff that goes into helping a sorority woman have a great collegiate experience. And then as well as my work in nonprofits. Sororities are nonprofit organizations, and nonprofits come with a unique set of challenges and also a unique opportunity to really do some work that can't always get done in a corporate or for-profit setting. So I have really enjoyed being at MJ. I've been here going on 3 years and never thought that I would know this much about sorority risk management at this phase of my life, but I can say that I really, truly enjoy it.
Well, that's good. When people hear risk management, I think they automatically kind of glaze over, right? They think paperwork, insurance forms, but it's a whole lot more than that. So talk about kind of what your day-to-day work life looks like.
Sure. I will say most of my day is informed by what's happening in our chapters or the chapters that we serve across the country. So MJ serves 20 of the 26 national Pan-Hellenic sororities and their chapters across the country, as well as a few other women's fraternities and sororities. So we have the benefit of that program structure where if one thing happens at this campus in this organization and we see it again at another campus and another organization, we can really begin to identify those trends and get ahead of them. So often my work is trying to get ahead of things before they become a problem. So when you were giving my lovely introduction, you mentioned porch pickups. So we saw some apps start to pop up that are beyond sort of the Facebook groups of, I had formal, does anybody want to buy my dress? Or I'll loan it to you for your formal that's next week, or et cetera, et cetera. And some young entrepreneurs really smartly capitalizing on that opportunity and saying, I can build an app that helps women, specifically sorority women, exchange these types of outfits, dresses, whatever it is. We started to see some issues of, hey, there's packages piling up at ABC sorority house. Oh, and it's happening over here on this campus. And somebody went to pick something up and the sidewalk's covered in ice. They slipped and fell. And now they're not going to formal at all. So how do we kind of shift those behaviors before they really become ingrained and become a hurdle for a chapter and really get to yes? So that's kind of my goal, is always, if you want to do something, if the women want to make something happen, how do we help you get there most efficiently and most safely?
I would never have thought about that with the porch pickup, just some of the risk and the liability that comes with that, because you think it's, oh, just a super simple thing. But your example of slipping on the ice makes sense. So how, like, continuing with that example, how would you help a chapter make sure that that could happen, but happen safely and not have issues?
Yeah, definitely. So something that we have suggested is to do meetups on campus, public area, safe area, somewhere that, the university is already considering the women's safety, right? We don't want to put anybody like, hey, I'll meet you at the gas station down the road. Probably not a good idea. I would say 90% of risk management is often just stopping and thinking before you do something. And so just kind of altering the behavior slightly, right? Like, we want you to be able to get a great deal on a formal dress. For sure. I'm in a phase of life where I'm going to weddings all the time. And I would love to be able to just pick up a dress, hand it back for a good deal. And so getting women to just shift the behavior rather than creating a hazard on the porch, piling up boxes, making your space feel cluttered, not organizing things well, inviting a bunch of people onto your property that you may not know or may not have vetted, and rather kind of shifting that behavior to happen off of the chapter house property. You're still getting everything, you're still accomplishing everything you're trying to accomplish, but everybody kind of ends up in a safer spot. That's just one example. There are lots of different ways that we kind of create those resources that we then direct toward chapter members, to advisors, just to kind of get them thinking. To your point, it's not something that I either probably would have thought about until we saw it happening. And then we really start to think, okay, how can we modify this behavior where everybody still accomplishes their goal and doesn't, slip, trip, and fall?
No, that's good advice. So I appreciate you sharing that. What about unofficial chapter houses? Because I know that tends to pop up specifically on campuses where, maybe universities don't provide housing or a chapter might be smaller. Let's talk about that scenario a little bit.
Yes, that is a hot topic right now, Liz, a very hot topic. So we've seen more and more of these unofficial chapter houses pop up, especially at universities where there isn't an official chapter house. And in a very, well-intentioned way, women are putting their letters on the outside of the house that, 4 or 5 women have rented together in their own names, or hosting a chapter meeting there, or an event, or conducting the business of the chapter, and treating it like a chapter house, which makes sense, right? You have a space where the members already are. It's easy access. It's free. Everybody knows where it is. It's a very natural thing to do. But to stop and think, to pause and say, what kind of liability am I creating for myself, for the chapter, for the national organization? So we have put out advice that's pretty basic on kind of the frontline things you can do. If you are renting, they're often known as the junior senior house, or on a campus that doesn't have housing, it kind of colloquially becomes known as the ABC sorority house. Don't put your letters outside or really advertise that as the chapter house. It's not the chapter house. Maybe don't host a risky event there. Make sure that you've thought through, who's coming over, how are they interacting with your space. I lived off campus for a semester, and I remember having some people over once, and that's all it took. I never wanted to have people over again because they are messy.
Yes, they are.
And you want to be able to, part of the fun of living outside of the chapter house is having a little different experience. Living in a chapter house and living out of a chapter house are two different experiences, and being able to, again, get to yes. How do we help empower you to make that a great experience and feel that you can use the property in the way that you want to? And also protect your organization and protect the members living there from creating any unwanted liability. So it's a process, and it's not a perfect process. So I think just becoming aware and thinking through potential issues in a different way really kind of informs those decisions for both members and advisors and the national organization.
Yeah, it definitely does. The whole time you were talking, I just was thinking this is really just an awareness issue. You just have to kind of think a couple steps ahead and not just be focused on this immediate decision. You have to kind of think about the consequences and be aware of where that might lead. And do you want to go down that path? And if the answer is no, then okay, how do you shift things and get to that yes, to your point, but a different way?
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, people think insurance and their eyes glaze over and get it, right? I mean, sometimes I feel that way, but I think that manner of thinking and the ability to really critically think about issues that you're dealing with, whether it's managing a property, designing a property, or if you face something in class or at work, these are just lifelong skills. It's really the way that you think, not so much the subject matter that you're thinking of. That's of course important, but that's really a life skill that I'm sure you use, Liz, when you're designing. How do you think about, hey, I love this look or this feel, and then kind of the thinking 3 steps ahead. How do I make it last? Or how do I make it? I mean, you have how many women coming through a sorority house every day? That's very different than like a private residence, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's more hotel level activity, yet it has to feel like a home. And so that's the fun balance on my side.
I'm sure it's fun, but also a lot of factors to consider.
Yeah, it is. It is. And then you've got objectivity, right, between preferences of each organization or each chapter and what you've kind of how you mix that in as well. So, yeah, but you're right. Awareness and just that method of thinking is something that could serve you very well currently in your chapter and then beyond through life. And I'm curious, you talked about working with like 20 of the 26 Panhellenic organizations. Y'all at MJ have a wealth of knowledge. You're obviously seeing trends and keeping up with it. How does that get filtered down and communicated to chapters or advisors so that you're spreading that education and awareness? Because you don't know what you don't know, but if you have access to your information, you can be more educated.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I'm so glad you asked, because this is what I spend most of my time trying to figure out, is not just creating awareness or the resources for awareness, but getting it into the right hands. So we have a few different audiences. We work with chapter members often in planning safe events, in getting them resources to be sure that they have everything they need to plan an event, that they get it done in a timely manner, that it goes off without a hitch, that they're following their organization's guidelines, and then often with advisors in kind of the chapter services realm. So thinking about how do you work with members and deal with things that come up in a responsible and thoughtful way, which is something that I will say our clients are fantastic at providing resources for as well. They're really great in that area, as well as house corporations. So I know you work with a lot of house corporations too on the fun stuff of design, and then also just property management. There's so much that goes into making a sorority house function day to day and year to year. And we provide a huge number of resources for them through a monthly newsletter. You can reach out to us if you go to mjsorority.com. If you are a house corporation advisor, collegian listening to this, just reach out. We're happy to answer any questions you have. And our resource library that you can find on our website is a wealth of information. I mean, you come up with something and pop it in the search bar, and to your delight or chagrin, 4 or 5 things will probably pop up. And if not, tell us that, because that's something that I should put on my to-do list.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting to have the different audiences that you're communicating to, because I'm in a similar boat. To an extent, you're trying to reach students. You're also trying to reach advisors and decision makers. And then you're either trying to reach the national organizations or the local house core boards. And so it's how can you get the message across, and how do you reach those people well? And I know one of the other things that y'all do is you have a podcast where you talk about some of these things too.
We do. That you can also find on our website, Real Talk with MJ Sorority. So that's where we've identified some of those trends that you see pop up. We talked about porch pickups, and unofficial houses are kind of what we're focused on right now. And we spend time talking with experts, talking with one another, just thinking through the problem and trying to figure out how to get to yes, how to get to a spot where everybody wins. And I'm really excited that is about to come back. We've been dormant for a couple years. So be on the lookout to hear more from me if you'd like.
Yes. I'm curious what other trends beside the porch pickup and the unofficial houses that you're seeing that maybe weren't around 5 or 10 years ago, because we know everything's constantly evolving. Are there other patterns that you're seeing?
Yeah, those are some interesting liability, almost kind of chapter member behavior related things on the property side. And I'd love to hear your input in this as well. We're just starting to see different needs from the collegians or asks as they go through recruitment, as they're moving into chapter houses, how they're using the space. And we talk a lot with our partners about this and thinking through how are you designing safe spaces that also serve the dual needs of today's collegian, which are privacy and spaces of retreat and also community living. So those are some of the things that are really tough to serve dually. You can speak much better as to how to do that. But it is something that we think about a lot. Just what liabilities do those things create, and how do you make spaces that are inviting to a chapter member and that allow the house to function well over time?
Yeah, it is an interesting challenge and almost a case-by-case basis, because if you're dealing with an existing chapter house and maybe you're trying to adapt it or help elevate it, and you're trying to find places of respite and privacy, but then also places to have larger group gatherings, you really have to just look at how it's laid out and what the possibilities are. And that's budget contingent and, timing contingent. And there's a lot of factors there. And so that's kind of the fun puzzle of the work that I do. And, it's really the same if you're starting from scratch. Yes, the world's your oyster to an extent, but it is balancing the private areas with the public areas and realizing that you're serving the student as a whole person, not just as a social being and not just as an introvert, but how can you apply to everyone and all of their needs?
Yes, absolutely. And that's something that we've kind of focused on the last few years. There's so many properties that are older homes that either are getting redesigned, there's so many different levels, right? Taken down to the studs. We just need a little refresh, but really retrofitting is the term that we've used that property to be as resilient as possible. So, you also mentioned earlier changing weather patterns. You're seeing chapter homes, especially in the Southeast, that are encountering weather that they were not built for, that they are being managed by wonderful and extremely capable volunteers and advisors and property managers that are just having to become more aware of different things in that area of the country. This last year, there was a storm in Mississippi, and Ole Miss was hit pretty hard. And I was floored at how on top of it the volunteers at that campus were, and were really thoughtful and prepared in preventing freeze and helping their members make decisions about, do you stay in the house? What if the heat goes out? Do you have what you need? Make sure you're looking out for these warning signs that a pipe has burst. There's just a really great, we call it predict, prevent, protect. So the 3 P's of how do you identify the potential things that could threaten your chapter house property. Changing weather patterns would be offender number 1. And then prevent them from happening. So what technology can you implement if you're designing a new chapter house, if you're retrofitting an old chapter house? How do you work that in where it doesn't feel awkward, but really just feels like a part of the design and a part of the home and serves the property well so that members aren't, a pipe doesn't burst and members are displaced. That's a huge disruption to the experience, and preventing that is huge. Of course, things happen. So then if things do happen, how are you protecting your members as best you can and coming up with a plan to then react as quickly as possible, which is, we try to avoid that as much as possible. But of course, our partners with house corporations as they manage those things as well.
I know when you and I were together at the housing forum in February, we were having a conversation around when, you are building, or if you do have the walls opened up, putting in leak detectors on your plumbing so that you have the technology that could help you catch when there is a leak and catch things before pipes break or there's problems. And there is so much of that technology out there right now. If you can just thoughtfully include it when you're making these plans, it really helps with that prevention piece that you're talking about and helps catch things.
So much less expensive, right? If you're already doing something, look into the other things that you can also do. Again, back to awareness, just being a critical thinker. Okay, I am doing this project. This is a huge example, but my roof needs replaced. We're running into a lot of older chapter house roofs that that are 20 plus years old. And do I install the minimum building codes? But those aren't really fit for the changing weather patterns. So maybe I spend 15 to 20% more on the all-weather shingles and work with my contractor to do a little bit more. And it might hurt at the beginning because it is a greater cost. But in the long run, I'm going to save 4 or 5x what I spent today. And it's thinking through things in that way that really make a big difference versus having to then go and replace an entire roof again in 10 years.
Yes, exactly. It's worth it to pay a little bit more on the front end to have that peace of mind and that longevity rather than to go inexpensive on the front end and then you're buying it again just a few years down the road. Ultimately, that is more expensive. It's just not all on the front end. And that's kind of that awareness piece and that thinking a few steps ahead that folks need. And sometimes when you're a volunteer and you're not doing this every day, you don't know that. And so this is valuable education to share with people.
Yeah. And it's, we are so lucky to have such wonderful women that volunteer at not just the chapters where they were members or where they were initiated, but wherever they end up. And it's such a gift of time and expertise to be able to do that. And so when you're in that position, as you just said, you can't know everything and you can't do everything. And that's where I spend my time trying to alleviate some of that. So you're not just sitting there with Google, what should I do to my roof or what is leak detection? We try to take the first kind of 70, 80% of that work off of your plate. And then all you're doing is making an informed decision and thinking about the needs of your chapter. Because you know that information more than we do, more than an advisor at a different chapter. Just being thoughtful in how we can help make those decisions and that time that you're already taking to give back to your chapter easier.
And I think if I remember correctly, MJ is piloting some interesting programs like roof resiliency reports and electrical fire sensors. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and what you think that value that may come from that for your listeners or your insured?
Yes, absolutely. And this is something I'll just flag here that I have started doing some of these things in my own home. So if you're a homeowner or you carry homeowners insurance, which if you own a home, I hope you carry homeowners insurance.
Highly advised.
Often your insurance carrier in the personal lines is what we call it. So if it's something that you're purchasing for yourself, for your own home, will either provide these sorts of things at a discount or for free. And we're really proud at MJ that we've been able to partner with our carriers to start doing that in what we call the commercial space. So sororities are a commercial client. And so I would just say, give your insurance carrier a call, and you never know. I've installed some of these things at my house, and it's given me a lot of peace of mind. Leak detection in particular. We had a leak in our air conditioning unit a few months ago, and we're not in town. So that could have gotten a lot worse, a lot more quickly than it did, because there was leak detection installed in our home. So things like that. I'll start with, you mentioned our electrical fire sensors. Ting is the name of the company that we're working with. And it's about this big, and you scan the box and download the app, and then you plug it into the wall, and it detects whether you have any electrical surges or fire hazards in your system. Not sexy or interesting at all, except that we had a chapter house, an older home where, the wires had been there for quite some time. And it detected a faulty breaker that could have caused the entire property to come down in fire, right? You never know if or when that could happen, but it detected it before it became an issue. And we were able to replace that breaker within 48 hours of the device finding that issue.
Wow.
So that's something that we're really excited about. We've deployed about 200 across the country and have gotten great reports so far, and really proud of that catch. So that's one that we're super excited about.
Yeah, rightfully so. I mean, what an amazing tool to have for the safety, and just again, that peace of mind of knowing you're in a good place and you don't have to worry about that issue.
Yeah. And that technology, I think, has come so far in this space, especially in the last 5 years. Some of the things that felt clunky when they first came out have really become easier to use. You can manage it from your phone. It makes it really convenient. And the prices have gone down significantly. There's a company that we recommend for leak detection, Yolink. And I think a little water bug that you could install next to a water heater. I want to make sure that my water heater isn't leaking. Where those used to be fairly expensive are now, starting at $25 to, like $500 for a system. And that's a really, 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 really easy business decision to make when you look at how much a claim can cost you, right? Water damage claims especially account for about 50% of the property claims that we see, and are preventable most of the time.
And water is frankly more damaging than fire. Like, it seeps and spreads and causes more issues than anybody really thinks about until it happens to them.
Yes, especially sprinkler systems, which are hugely important, right? For life safety, you want to be prepared in case there is a fire. A sprinkler system saves lives. But if a sprinkler system goes off because you were, and this happened, taking a TikTok video of your sorority sister who accidentally started a fire in the microwave because it was funny, instead of putting out the fire so it gets large enough that it sets off the system and causes tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage, because that system releases water quickly. And water is just not something you want to mess around with. So the more we can do to prevent that, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking about implementing some of these things in your own home. And I used to have the system Flow in my last house, and I loved it. Same thing, right? You could make sure it would tell you, oh, maybe a toilet's running or something, and you could check in on it. So if you were away, you always knew your house was okay. And I use other systems like a casa for my electrical stuff so that I never have to come home to a dark house. My exterior lights are always on. So that's kind of a safety thing there too. So I completely track with what you're describing and see how it could benefit in the larger sorority space.
Yeah. And you mentioned a running toilet. Sometimes things don't have to be dramatic, right? If a toilet's running for a couple months, your water bill can go up significantly. And that's a problem for a house corporation. And that's going to ultimately cost the organization or the members. So some of these things really, if you take the time up front, and as you're trying to retrofit a property, as you're building a new property, what can we do now to prevent all these headaches later? And that is such an important way to think about your chapter house properties. And clients are fantastic about doing that and very easy to work with, but it does take time. As you know, it takes a lot of time.
It does take time. And I joke, the unsexy stuff is what eats away at my budget, but it's so necessary to have those infrastructure things in a good place before you're focusing on the aesthetics, because we could redo the living room and we could put beautiful things in there. But if that pipe bursts or that sprinkler system goes off or the house burns down, it doesn't do anybody any good. But if you have all of those things shored up and in a good place, then you can continue to work through everything else and accomplish what you want. It just, to your point, takes some time and it takes some investment.
Exactly. And even I think it's combined with the aesthetic a lot. I spent some time before we sat down today looking through PDR's portfolio and just noticing in your design how natural spaces felt, and then looking back again through a risk management lens and thinking, oh, these have all these potential issues have been addressed. And that's it. It feels so natural because you've married the two things so well, right? So there was an example of, I saw a bathroom where you'd created great privacy by, floor to ceiling doors, and that keeps the water inside the shower. That gives you privacy. There's separate spaces for where you're plugging in your straightener and maybe accidentally leaving it on, or people aren't spilling water over there. And it feels very natural and is a great living experience for members because you've thought about it beforehand. So even the not sexy stuff sort of gets into the fun stuff too.
It does. You're right. There's a lot of thought, and thank you for the compliments there. But yes, we do try to think through those things and those needs because it all ties together, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Well, I've enjoyed getting to know you over the past few years in your time at MJ, and I want listeners to get to know you a little bit better too. And I know you love trying new recipes, and you are personally on a quest to find the best chocolate chip cookie recipe. And so I'm curious, tell us about that. Like, which one's winning? What's the winning ingredient?
I'm so glad you brought this up. And if anybody has any input or suggestions, let me know. I've tried a lot of chocolate chip cookie recipes. So far, my mom's chocolate chip cookies are still the winner. I think it's the nostalgia. My mom's chocolate chip cookies also happen to be Nestle Toll House's chocolate chip cookies. So the simplicity wins out, but that's been a fun project. I have a 3-year-old little girl who loves to be in the kitchen and who loves cookies, coincidentally. So that has been a fun project, is to figure out the best chocolate chip cookie recipe. So I'm also a fan of putting coconut in a chocolate chip cookie. That's a good tip. Also freeze or refrigerate your dough.
Yes.
Before you put them in. That's, like your head can tell you that, your tummy might tell you just pop them in the oven. I lose that battle sometimes, but it is a personal quest of mine. So I will take any recipe suggestions that I can get.
That's funny. So when you were talking about it, I was thinking through my mom's recipe, and she also used Nestle's, but what she did was lessen the flour so that it'd be just a little bit thinner, not super crunchy, but a little bit thinner. And I loved that. I would eat the dough. I would eat them baked, the whole bit. So you can give that a go. I
just wrote it down. Yeah. My mom would do, if she was really feeling like chocolate chip cookies, you do half the butter it calls for and half Crisco.
Yeah.
You really want somebody else to make that and just not to know at that point.
Exactly. That's what I thought too. My sister loves butter and I love her cooking. And I'm like, never tell me, Rachel. Do not ever tell me how much you put in there because I don't want to know.
Yes. Yes, that's so true. It's one of the drawbacks of being the chef.
Yes, yeah, you know too much, but maybe it helps curb the appetite.
Right. Yeah, one's enough.
So I know you like granny hobbies too. What's one hobby you think everybody should try?
Well, this is trending right now. But I would like to say in this very specific instance, and pretty much the only instance in my life, I've been ahead of the trend of needle pointing. It's back. So I suggest a needle for the summer. It's a great pool activity. You can sit, listen to an audiobook, turn on some tunes, needle point. I'm actually, I had not thought about this. I am needle pointing a tray of chocolate chip cookies right now to frame in my kitchen.
Oh, I love it. That's perfect.
So that sort of, brings me full circle there.
Yes, it does. I love the idea of needle pointing. Like, how challenging is it to be a beginner? Because I get mad when I'm not good at it, something immediately. And so am I going to get mad?
That's the best part of it. You can be really good at it immediately. Yeah, it's the best part. You look like an expert, and it's really just, can you go up through one hole and down through the other?
Okay, yeah. I've got a friend, Toby, and she needle points all the time. And then I watch her say like, oh, I changed this color out. And I'm like, oh, this could be so fun. I also may be poor if I start this hobby, but Mahjong is my current vibe. And so it's the same over there.
Oh, I have not gotten into that granny hobby.
I need you to learn before next MJ Housing Forum so we can play.
So but you need 4 people, or can you play?
You can play with less. There's some nuance to it that is too long to talk about now, but I've played with just one other person. I've played with 3 total people, but 4 is ideal.
Ideal. Okay. Well, the cute Mahjong tiles that the algorithms keep feeding me are piquing my interest. If there's an accessory, it's a hobby I'm interested in. I'm learning that I am a prime target market for that.
Oh, I feel you. Like, Instagram's got my number, and I'm sure the ads that are going to pop up after today's conversation and the phone sitting next to me, they're going to be all about cookies and Mahjong and needle pointing. So prepare.
Oh, it could be worse. It could be worse.
Yeah. Well, in closing, Kit, tell me, fill in the blank here. A thriving sorority house is what?
A thriving sorority house is a space where you feel safe enough to grow and learn.
Oh, very good. I like that.
Thank you. I like that too. It's the point, right? Like, we're all trying to create spaces where we can become the best versions of ourselves. And sororities are just, I can't think of a better model to accomplish that.
I fully agree. Well, this has been a great conversation. And if people would like to connect with you further, what's the best way for them to do that?
Add me on LinkedIn. Kit Moorman is how you can find me. I look like this. And or go to mjsorority.com, reach out. We are here to answer any questions you have about risk, about cookies. Just say the word.
Perfect. We'll put it in the show notes. Thanks so much, Kit.
Thanks, Liz.
Welcome to Liz's House Hot Takes. This is where I take the lessons I've learned over the last 16 years of designing Greek houses and offer you my pro tips. Here's today's house hot take. Your house doesn't need to look expensive, it needs to look cared for. Fresh paint, clean grout, fluffed pillows, straight art. Maintenance is the most underrated design strategy. So who needs to own this role within your chapter? Is it the members, the house director, the facilities chair, a committee? It doesn't really matter. You just need to make a plan, communicate people's roles, and start implementing it. Thanks for listening to another House Hot Take. For more inspiration, check out the PDR Interiors Instagram or TikTok. I'm Liz Alexander, and this is the Sorority Chat Podcast. Catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you got something out of today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check out this video right here or this one over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. I'm Liz Alexander, and this is the Sorority Chat Podcast. Catch you next time. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry for Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Liz Alexander.